Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. In a few days, we're going to get the LB Murcielago SV, this season's Milestone car. So, naturally, all of us are curious, how good is this car, and is it worth it to immediately build it? As we all know, most likely it's going to end up as some kind of top showdown car. So, you know, the pressure is going to be there to fully build this car. But just how good is it? Well, before we get too far, this video is brought to you by the Spoon Cat. The Spoon Cat is the gentleman who helped to provide me access to this car ahead of its full release as a Milestone car, so we can bring you this video which will give you some heads up on this car before you get it in your garage on your account this coming Thursday. At that point, you can then utilize this video to determine if this is a car that's indeed worth your investment, infusions, and money to build. Alright, first thing first, what does this car run? Foley Max 713-1898 Evo is the best Evo I can achieve utilizing standard tuning of left, right, left, left, which is basically all the way to the right, all the way to the left, all the way to the left. This seems to produce the highest Evo tune of 8.140. Let's go ahead and run this car and see what it runs. If the dyno is 8.140, unless this thing's going to substantially break dyno, it's not likely to run super fast compared to what it dynos, so you're not looking at a 7-second car here. Another interesting thing, and this is happening to all new cars recently, is that Natural Motion's making these cars all launch with a 0 RPM launch. In the old days, that is technically a bad launch because of super high grip, but they're changing it to this on purpose because I think they're trying to avoid allowing people to get a 0 RPM drop tune to beat dyno. So what you instead end up with is a bunch of cars that all run the same exact way, which is you launch it 0 RPM and then maybe shift quick to one gear or the other in Nitrous. So it takes away some of the variables on launch points, but I think the point here is they don't want you to get a huge dyno buster out of these 0 RPM variables in live. Now, this car will do 8.3202 or maybe even 7.9s in somebody's hand that's better at shifting or has a better device than I have. But bottom line is it's about an 8-second car, maybe a 7.99 second car if you tweak it a little bit. And the dyno is 8.14. So Foley Max, it beats dyno a little bit. And because it's sitting in the 8.1 lobby doing 8.0s, it's somewhat competitive, I guess. But understand that it's not really that fast a car. So before you go run out and rush to try to max it, understand this is probably like 40 cars or 30 cars down the list as far as performance at Foley Max. And you're in a lobby where a lot of cars are going to be 7-second cars that are just down tuned to 8.1, 8.2, and they're going to whoop you because they're going to run 7.7, 7.8s. Okay, now, so that is Foley Maxed. What about Stage 5 only, right? Stage 5 only, this car should be a lot slower, but is it at least as quick as a 9-second, maybe? Maybe we can use it for Harkness's time trial. Well, unfortunately, the answer to that, and I'm going to ruin it for you up front, is also no. Okay, this car is about standard where it falls when it's Stage 5 only. And we're going to go ahead and go Stage 5 only now and take a look at that. Now, the Stage 5 only tune really is not too much different, but it does like a little bit of nitrous. You know, it's 1566 here, and then you can eke out some more just by moving this around. But you're not going to get a huge jump anywhere from that point. So really, you're just kind of stuck at the 1581, which is a 9.646 dyno. And yet again, the car runs about the same way as Foley Max, which means, yet again, you need that 0 RPM drop to really get the most out of the car. So we're going to do again, kind of drop at 1, boom, and 0 RPM drop, second gear nitrous, because it does have 0-100 tires set up, and it doesn't spin the tires that much in first. What really kills this car, in my opinion, is the fact that it tops out. Okay, this car has the potential of actually probably beating these top speeds when it's fully maxed, which will make it a faster car. But Natural Motion intentionally made the gearing such that fully 2.0 top speed is still under 350. Therefore, it has no leg to run further. It doesn't get any faster. It's kind of, by using the 0 RPM start plus a top speed that's mediocre, they really kind of lock this car into a performance range that it's just not going to exceed. So no matter what you do, this car isn't going to do much better than where it's at here, because it's going to top out even if it has the power, and it only launches in one way that is beneficial to it. So knowing all that, let's take a look at the stage 6 effects. Now, what you're really moving from is you're going to move from a 9.5 to an 8.1. So yes, it's a little over a second difference, but divide that by 7 and you kind of see where I'm going with this. Each individual stage 6 isn't going to give you a huge drop. Now, that doesn't mean one won't stand out, but each of them should only have a certain amount of impact unless some of them really, really suck. Okay, now, engine first, as always. Engine has a nice Evo jump, which means engine is actually pretty good. Generally with engine, you're going to be running a longer gear anyway, so in this case, tuning it this way isn't likely to give you much benefit. You're going to be stuck here either way, and since you're already looking at literally nothing when it comes to the final drive, you might as well put it to 2.0. Again, tire stays where it is. And nitrous, now nitrous you can play with a little bit, but slightly longer, keeping it at the same final drive doesn't seem to really help it that much. So, you know, you're looking at still at the end, maybe a 4.0 or a 3.8 nitrous giving you that 9.331 dyno. That's a pretty decent drop, but it's not great. Again, 0 RPM drop launch should be able to beat dyno a little bit, and that little bit is probably what you're going to be stuck with as far as dyno beating performance, if any. Okay, so again, I'm going to try to get that 0 RPM drop. Second gear nitrous. Now, I'm sure when Zukar gets a hold of this car and does his thing, he may find some variation on the driving technique. But if there is and it beats what it does now, that'll be great. But I just don't see, with the top speed being as limited, with the way the grip is, and with these numbers, I don't see this car really exceeding its performance by all that much. Okay, so again, it is a dyno beating slightly, and it's consistent throughout. It'll beat dyno by about a tenth, and whether it's fully maxed or not fully maxed, but that's the margin that it has. And it doesn't have really high Evo at lower upgrades, so it's not a low performance point high Evo car either. So all around, so far, this car is just kind of mediocre. That's really the ultimate thing I can say about it so far. Okay, now, so 9.3 from a 9.5 for the engine. Here we got turbo, where the final Evo numbers actually dropped, so that's never a good sign, but it doesn't mean that the car won't get a little faster. Actually, it did not. So we need to tweak it a little bit, see if I can find that bigger number somewhere. Doesn't look like you're going to get a whole lot of jump out of this car. I think I saw 1547 as the highest. Oh no, 48. Yep, 48. So that's a 9.580. Wow. Okay, that's barely any different than the stage 5. So that's not a good sign. Certainly turbo is probably the weakest out of the batch so far. All right, so let's remove turbo and move to intake. I'm not going to run every stage 6. I think you already know what the driving technique is. You can always test it, but the dyno already give you a pretty good idea where you're starting off at. Intake, all but useless as well. A little bit better, I think, than turbo. Certainly the Evo's higher, and therefore it's definitely looking like it's better than turbo by a little bit. Not by much though. I mean, these guys are pretty close as being pretty low overall. In fact, turbo may still beat it because I think turbo was a 508 and that was a 538. So turbo intake very weak, not surprisingly, but obviously very weak stage 6s. Now nitrous sometimes is a pretty big one. In this case, I don't see it being all that much of a difference. And 9.501, that's not all that impressive either. Maybe here we can get some more points out of it, or not. I just saw a 7. I think that's probably the best I'm going to see. 9.499. All right, well, it's better than turbo and intake. But so far, nothing. These last 3 hasn't even come close to engine. So engine so far has been doing pretty good. Okay, so you got 3 that are super weak right now, and then we're moving to body, which traditionally is a pretty good one, and here it looks like it is as well. Most T5s seems to like body, not every single car, but most, and that gives us that's a nice drop, right, compared to what we were seeing before. That is a definite decent increase, 9.168 from 9.5. So that is the biggest drop so far. So body definitely looking like it's on top with about a 10th margin to beat dyno by. You're probably looking at 9.0 something with body. Okay. Take a look at tire. That is an increase of Evo and performance point. Not quite on par with body, I think, but a decent increase. It's probably better than engine, but not quite impressive enough to outperform body. Okay, or even come close. I mean, it's still like 2/10 off from body almost. Okay, so tire and engine almost on the same level. And then turbo intake on the same level. Nitrous is pretty bad too. Okay, so this puts us already to a point where we're looking at the final stage 6 here, which is pretty decent. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. This is transmission. All right, let's go back to the tune. I kind of jumped in and out of there real quick. All right, so 9.474. So nothing here really stands out as other than body being pretty decent and tire being okay. So top 3 actually turns out to be what looks like body, tire, and engine. And then you're looking at trans and nitrous, turbo and intake being the bottoms. So really, it's really biased towards body and tire, and then everything else is kind of let's go ahead and put body and tire together. I see where that puts the car, and then we'll put the other 5 together with combinations. So this is a decent jump right here already. Let's see, 8.902 from a 9.5. Well, that's impressive. 8.854. Well, that's impressive. It should do about an 8.7. It's not super great, right? It's good, but it's not super great. But then again, that is only 2 stage 6s. But let's see what this will run, then we'll see what the other 5 will run. Okay, so we're going to go through standard driving technique. Looks like about an 8.7 something, which is kind of what I expected, 793 on a 8.85. Okay, so that's 2. Let's go back and swap and go for 5 and see how 5 compares to 2. Because I know out of the 5, 2 of them are pretty weak and therefore probably isn't going to do much. But still, 5 should definitely outperform 2. If it doesn't, then we have some serious issues. Now, engine actually is almost as good as tire, I think. So putting engine in buffers the 5. If I don't put the engine in, I think it's going to change things definitely in the favor of the 2 by quite a bit. But engine may help balance it out. Let's see what we got here dyno-wise. 8.8. It's almost identical to having the others. So literally you have 5 being slightly better than 2. Okay, that's at least on the dyno, that is what it's showing. Quick run, let's see what it does, and then we can go back and summarize this car a little bit. So once again, 0 RPM drop, and same driving technique to keep everything consistent on comparison. This gives us a flat comparison rather than all different shifting techniques. Okay. All right, so 8.697, it did outperform the other one by a bit, and it's a little bit better. We'll have to see what's going on here with this car now. Okay, so that was 5 versus 2, and we've already seen it fully maxed in stage 5 only. So really, at this point, the car is just so-so, right? Can you go with a low performance point, high evo setup? Short answer to that is also no. It just loses evo when you lower stages. The other issue is that when you're lowering these stages, that doesn't change by a whole lot. So when you lower the points, look at that, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. So you're not getting a lot of point jumps, and lowering this is important to make the matchmaking better in live. So this car will not have a lobbying advantage anytime in live. It's going to go off of its dyno, and then the real question is it 1/10 off dyno going to be enough for you to really get somewhere with it? So is it a cool looking car? Absolutely. Is it going to be a great car to add to your garage? I like every car I add to my garage, but from a standpoint of this car being really, really useful and being super effective in live and all that, no, it's kind of mediocre car. In fact, it's on the slow side nowadays, considering it only runs an 8 versus most cars that runs at least 7 something, and some cars now running 6s. So it's going to be most likely a dust collector for most people. So keep that in mind. Again, without fully getting into fine-tuning and trying to figure out other shift patterns, the 8.0 is an estimate on what the ultimate performance of this car is. I suspect with more work and some testing, it can possibly hit 7.9s in some people's hands. All right, so that is the Milestone car, the LB Murcielago SV, and my ultimate conclusion is that this is a mediocre car. If you have comments or questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section of my channel. If you like the video, please leave a like. If you like my channel, please subscribe so you can get notifications. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.